I'm here today with Luke Woodworth. He's a senior at Gilman, and he's about to graduate and head off to Stanford next year. Luke, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
You excited for next year, Stanford?
I am, yeah.
How many times have you been out there?
Twice to California, once to the San Francisco, Palo Alto area.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've been out there one time, and I stayed in... Well, I've been to San Francisco a couple times, but I've gotten down to Stanford once and walking around that campus. It reminded me of like Disney World or something. It's like this, I don't know, it's spread out, good to walk around, beautiful.
It's pretty nice, yeah. When I was there, it was like 40 degrees in the morning, warmed up to 70 both days, so pretty perfect.
And what's the train? There's a train that goes throughout all those towns.
I don't know.
You'll probably take it when you're...
Probably, yeah.
When you're there. But do people at Stanford, they usually like hang out in San Francisco? Do you know?
I think most people will go out and have dinner and stuff in Palo Alto. There's a lot of good restaurants around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I didn't, I guess I was just...
San Francisco is like a good 40-hour long drive.
Yeah.
40 minutes, hour-long drive away, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a commitment, so you'd
Yeah.
probably stick around. Cool. Well, you've got range. We usually save the book rack to the end, but we've been talking a little bit about this book. Can you, just for people who have not read Range, what's this all about, and when did you pick it up?
So, yeah, my dad recommended this book to me, and he's always picking up a different book and reading it from time to time, so he recommended this one to me as an athlete. And it kind of discusses, it says on the front page, why generalists triumph in a specialized world. And I think the first chapter summarizes it pretty well, comparing Roger Federer, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, to Tiger Woods, one of the greatest golfer, if not the greatest golfer of all time, and their differing paths to success. As Tiger, who started playing golf from a very young age, I believe like 4 years old, he was already shooting like a 45, 9 holes. And Roger Federer, who had parents who played tennis and were tennis instructors, but played soccer, a bunch of other sports, any sport with a ball, he said, and didn't specialize in tennis until he was like 12 or 13 years old. And kind of just comparing the different strategies to success, yeah.
Yeah, we had Owen Daly on last week, and we were talking about how smooth Federer is as a tennis player. Yeah. And, it's interesting to learn a little bit about his background in other sports and how that's, like, helped his game. And then Tiger Woods, you watch, I think there's a Tiger Woods documentary out there. I haven't seen it, but I know that Tiger Woods, from a very young age, was, playing golf, like golf all the time. That's all he did. So yeah, why did you choose this? Why did this stand out to you as important and interesting?
I think it's just really interesting to learn about human development and how people find success. So that's kind of what everyone's chasing, success one way or another. So this was a good way to kind of look into that. Also, kind of forgot to mention, but they use sports kind of as an analogy, or David Epstein uses sports, but compares a bunch of different examples to each other to kind of give this idea of having range a lot of credit for success.
And you feel like you're a generalist, you would describe yourself as?
I'd say so. With sailing, which is going to be my sport in college, I didn't fully kind of commit myself to that until junior year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was playing varsity soccer sophomore year, JV lacrosse, varsity hockey. Kept playing hockey, but then in the fall and spring I do sailing now.
So what's your background with sailing? It's your main thing. Have you been doing it your whole life?
Yeah, so both of my parents sailed in college. They kind of introduced the sport to me and my sister, twin sister Reese, when we were like 8. Small club in the summers in New York where my grandparents live, and we kind of just did it as a summer thing for a while. And eventually kind of progress to a national level, sometimes going international. And I found I was pretty good at it, but I didn't really let it interfere too much with my other sports, and just kind of thought of it as another sport, because I couldn't really pick which I liked the best. And then during COVID, I got an invite to sail with my best friend who's also going to Stanford with me, Tommy Sitzman. And he kind of asked me to just come sail with him on the weekends at first, because we lived close to each other. And that turned into a really great partnership and kind of got me going.
So I remember last year in, I guess it was this time of year last year, or maybe a little bit earlier, spring break time, you told me, Mr. Scott, I'm going to miss a few days of class because I'm going to Oman for sailing.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience. I mean, that I had to locate Oman on a map because I was like, where exactly is that again? Luke's, he's going pretty far away for this big championship event, right?
Yeah, it was the Youth Worlds. I think there were 64 countries there. So met a lot of different people, tons of different languages being spoken. And that was pretty interesting. Definitely the longest travel experience I've ever had. I think it was an 18-hour flight, 23-hour layover, and then another 4-hour flight. Layover in Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Cool airport. Lots of duty frees. There's like 8 levels of duty free.
Hmm.
Bought some RC cars, and we tried to race them, but they were on the same frequency, so you were just controlling both cars with one remote, which is kind of a bummer.
Did you go over here with the friend you were talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
with Tommy, yep. And a few other kids were on our same itinerary. We had 2 Hawaiian windsurfers and 1 British-American girl who was sailing a different type of boat.
So what was it like in Oman? I mean, how much time did you get to see the country? I know you were kind of siphoned off into the club that you were racing.
Yeah, so it wasn't great in that sense, because we were kind of just taxied to a Western style resort, and because of COVID and stuff like that, we had to stay there for about a week and a half. But they did do a good thing before the event started and brought in some cultural, basically like a fair. They had a camel to ride, some food, some different people, showing baskets that they made and traditional Omanese paraphernalia.
Man, that's
yeah,
that's pretty wild.
It was basically just a country of complete desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of the plants and landscaping were kind of just by the water. Once you got away, a mile away from the Persian Gulf, there was nothing, just desert.
Now, how about the competition over there? Was that pretty eye-opening in terms of, this is the highest level, I assume, this is the World Championships. What was that like, just racing?
Yeah, the competition was probably the toughest we'd had in that class of boat, which is a 420, 4.2 meters. I think it's a little more than 15 feet, maybe a little less than 15 feet. And there actually wasn't that many boats. There's only 20, but everyone that was there was from a different country, 1 boat per country, so they had to qualify to get there, so everyone was good, and it was super tight racing the entire time.
Yeah, I was with one of my college roommates this past weekend. He's up at business school in Philadelphia, and I was just hanging out with him this weekend, and in business school, it sounds like all they do is travel. He's going to a different country every couple of weeks, and he went to India for a couple of weeks, and he just was telling me about how incredible and different that was for him. I don't know, I've never been to India. I would be interested in going, but it seems like a country, in Oman seems like this too, a lot of people aren't going to Oman. It's completely rare and unique experience.
Definitely a unique experience, and it made me think right away, the world seems a lot smaller once you've been halfway around, or maybe it's a little more than halfway around. It felt wow, I've been almost all the way around the world, it felt a lot smaller, even though the flights were so long.
Yeah. Well, so what's it going to be like, I guess, next year? You're going into, sailing at Stanford. Like, what's the communication like from Stanford in terms of you're coming in as a freshman next year? What are they saying to you at this point?
At this point, we've just kind of been back and forth with the coach, probably on a weekly basis. He's asking about our summer plans, where we're planning on competing this summer, that type of stuff, and then trying to organize preseason training. The first day of classes is September 27th, so it's super late.
Yeah, it's late.
And potentially doing some East Coast training because a ton of the kids on the team are from the East Coast before going out there. But yeah, there hasn't been a ton of communication. I think after the season's over, it will start to ramp up because he's pretty busy right now. But yeah.
What are your plans for the summer? What are you thinking about doing?
I've got one event in Minnesota, which is the Youth Match Racing World Championship, which is match racing is one-on-one boats, with a current Stanford freshman, Tommy, who's going to Stanford with me, and then a younger girl, Samara, another friend from sailing. So we've got that in June, and then Team Race Championship, which is a different format, 3-on-3 boats. You got to try to get the least number of points to win. So there's different combinations that win. For example, like one first, second, anything wins. Basically, if the points that your boat score add up to, I think it's 10 or less, then you win. So like if you finish second, third, and fifth, you'd win.
Interesting.
And you're basically using the rules of sailing to kind of try to place your boats in front of the other boats and also be going fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Minnesota in the summer is going to be cool. I went there once. Another one of my college roommates from there, and it's beautiful.
Never been.
A lot of lakes. A lot of things to do up there.
It's on a lake, yeah.
Yeah. How about your internship? That's coming up.
Yep. So I'm going with a few other guys. I didn't know at the time that I signed up, but Owen Davidoff, Hayden Carpenter, George Hardy, and Henry Hoskins to shadow Mr. McAllister at Access Holdings. It's a venture capitalist firm. He's investing in a ton of different businesses. He's a friend, so I've talked to him a little bit about it. One of the things is pet crematoriums, and another is these marinas that have these boat racks, basically like triple level boat racks that store people's boats, and you kind of have a lift that like takes the boat off and puts it into the water.
And that's in Baltimore?
Yeah, it's in Baltimore.
Nice.
Downtown.
Cool. Well, you're getting to the end here of your time at Gilman.
Yep.
Bittersweet or excited? Like, what are the feelings right now on April 23rd?
Yeah, definitely bittersweet. I think someone counted the days left. I think it's like 12 school days.
My senior class has 7 classes left.
Some AP exams, and then kind of encounter, and that's it. Yeah, this year's definitely gone fast, but I'm trying not to get like too caught up in it. I saw some seniors last year get too like trying to, I don't know, live it out senior year a little bit too much. Like this is the last, whatever, first last, But I think it is what it is. Try to enjoy it, and it's gonna end at some point. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah. And have you gone to Gilman? Are you a 12-year guy?
No,
Did you go?
I was Calvert.
Oh, you went to Calvert.
Then Gilman starting in high school. Yeah.
Gotcha. What do you think about Gilman? You're gonna miss the most. Like, what do you think you like the most about this school as a high school experience?
I'd say I think Gilman does a really good job allowing kids to do different activities. Like I came in never having done art before, and I'm leaving an artist, and that's one of my favorite things about Gilman. Just providing those opportunities for people. Like the musical that's going on now, I think, is incredible. It's so fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Just different arts, I guess, maybe that Calvert didn't have. Different sports. Being able to start the sailing team here was awesome for me. I think that's going to be kind of my legacy.
Yeah.
So probably art and starting the sailing team.
I definitely want to talk to you about art, and I didn't know that. I didn't know you didn't do any artwork before coming here. So
no. We sewed pillows at Calvert. That was the extent of our art.
So no painting at Calvert?
No painting. We made some clay gingerbread houses. Joke about that with Mr. Connelly. His son Kean went there.
I think his son's an artist, right?
Yeah.
And he's a biker.
He's a hardcore biker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Intense.
So when you came in as a freshman and you're in Mr. Connelly's, drawing and painting class?
Yep.
What was that like for you? Like, how did you kind of decide you wanted to stay in that program for all 4 years and work with Mr. Connelly?
Well, I think it started for me before I got here. I had my shadow day. I was with Griffin Giese, I remember, and he had some test second period, so he handed me off to Cal, who's like my best childhood friend. We grew up on the same street, and he took me to art class. Mr. Connelly let me in the dark room, the photography lab, which no one was allowed to do apparently. So there's a little special treatment there. And then I just sat in on class with them, tried to draw, was terrible at it, but I loved the atmosphere and kind of the community in the art room. And I was like, I'm definitely doing this next year.
It's the best.
Yeah.
He's got the best feel in there, because everyone is quiet and focused.
Yep.
But it's not like he's up there lecturing or telling you guys what to do. It's you come in, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And he just kind of walks around and, if you need him, you need him, but otherwise you're on your own.
Yeah, he definitely achieves a very focused environment. That's what I'd say. Yeah.
I'd love to be able to do that in my English classes with writing, like I think writing is such an important skill. We just had the ChatGPT assembly, but writing and actually putting in the time to write, which I feel like students don't have outside of the school day, right? It's like you're busy, you've got different things going on after school. In class is a good time to sit down and focus and write, and I'd love to have that same atmosphere that Connelly has.
Yeah, it's pretty special. Definitely the first semester and basically freshman year was rough. I was way behind. And also Mr. Connelly was out with a biking injury, so we had the middle school teacher, Mr. Anderson, stepping in as a sub. But I figured it out. I think part of me loved the challenge of just learning these technical skills. I mean, I just had to make my hands steadier at first. He made us draw like straight lines or squares or perfect triangles. Just simple things like that. I couldn't get over the fact that it was hard to do, so I just really wanted to get good at that. So the challenge was definitely fun.
And you start out with still lifes, right? I mean, he puts the bike in the vase and all the things in the front.
Usually it starts out with stuff even simpler than that, like a paper towel roll or a cup or something, and kind of shines a light on it from one side, talks about all the terminology of the shadows and the light on the figure or the object. Then he works into still lifes with multiple objects.
And you're a landscape artist, right? That's kind of how you would identify.
Yep.
And you've painted, anything from mountains to boats to different trips you've been on.
Yep.
How did you kind of find that domain in the world of art as something that you wanted to continue to reproduce landscape paintings?
Yeah, so I kind of talked about it in my thesis. I'm not sure if you read it on my board.
I need to read that.
But I started last year just we had to do an AP art piece or art proposal with 20 pieces over the course of the year. And the theme for last year was moments that made me feel alive, kind of just images or times that I remembered feeling that kind of sense of joy and feeling alive. And those all happened to be a lot of times in nature. And then this year, I kind of pivoted a little bit and painted more figures in moments like that. When I kind of just discussed in my thesis how I like painting images that kind of bring me joy through the process of painting them and through looking at them when they're done, and it doesn't really need to be more than that for me. So a lot of times it's like a really pretty landscape or someone that's meaningful in my life doing something that I enjoy looking at. So that's kind of where the style came from.
I love the one that you've done recently of the mountain and the skier coming down.
Yep.
And that one's in Paragon.
Yep.
And where is that mountain? Is that?
That's in Alaska.
It's in Alaska.
Yeah.
So you've been to Alaska?
No. I took that out of a ski movie and painted it. Yeah.
What's the difference between painting from a photograph versus painting from real life? Because I know Mr. Connelly has you guys paint from like real life a lot, but I still see a lot of guys like yourself painting from different pictures that you've taken or Instagram posts that you think are cool.
Yeah.
And I always liked, I do caricature drawings and different types of drawings, and I always found it fine just to look at a photo and draw, but there is a difference, I would guess.
Yeah, so until junior year, he doesn't let you even pick up a photo to paint from. It's all direct from life. And what I've realized, what's kind of just helped me get better in art is Mr. Connelly telling me to paint what I see and realizing that painting's really about how you're looking at your subject and what you're painting, not just about like your technical skill. Because every artist's work is a product of their vision of what they're painting. Like an abstract artist, they're coming up with a completely different vision of a scene or something in their mind than a realist would be of the same subject. So that's he kind of taught us that by starting from painting from life and kind of developing that vision, and then once he saw that we had skills that he thought were adequate, he let us use photographs and things so we could paint what we wanted to, make work that we wanted to see.
Do you have some artists that you like to study? Because that's another thing that, you saw me in there a few months ago, and Mr. Connelly was helping me identify a couple artists that I need to try to mimic or at least study the way that they've painted and, made use of a similar image that I was looking at.
Yeah, so the first one that I've always looked at is Edward Hopper. I know we looked at some paintings in English class. His paintings are just so technically sound. Then got Ben Aronson, who's a really good kind of cityscape, landscape artist. And then I'll take Charlie Fenwick's artist, but me and him both enjoy really looking at his work. Kim Kogan, who's a California artist, and he's incredibly good at suggesting with color and kind of bigger brushstrokes, but still making paintings look super realistic.
Yeah, Hopper just had a recent exhibit in New York. I don't know if you were able to check that out, but it was super cool. Are you, do you like going to art museums?
I do, yeah.
Baltimore Museum of Art?
Yep, I've been. Yeah.
DC?
Good thing to do on the weekends. I haven't been to DC recently. I have been before, but not recently. I'd like to get to more art museums for sure.
I'm sure you've got some out in California.
I went to the Stanford Art Museum when I toured, and I was with Tommy, and he was like, what are we doing? Like, let's go see something. I was just walking around, like, taking 5 minutes per painting. He was really frustrated with me. So, yeah.
Is he from this area, Tommy?
Yeah, he goes to Severn, lives in Severna Park.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool. Well, yeah, that sounds good. So what's the rest of the school year looking like for you here? I mean, you're almost done.
Yeah, just 2 AP exams and then Encounter, and then it's kind of wrapping it up. Yeah.
What are the AP classes you're taking?
Biology with Mr. Fitzgibbon and BC Calculus with Mr. Jacobs. Yep.
Do you know what you might want to study in college? Or are you going to continue with art?
That's what everyone asks me. I do want to continue with art. I've got like half of me that maybe wants to go pre-med and be a doctor. My dad's a doctor. Another half that loves history and I'm interested in economics, maybe doing business, but I'm not really sure. Everyone I've talked to at Stanford has said don't declare a major or choose a major until you absolutely know, because you've got until after sophomore year and they've all changed their minds.
Stanford's schedule is a little bit different than other colleges, right? You
Yeah.
start really late. You have a little bit more time to choose.
3 quarters or 4 quarters. There's a summer quarter, but it's basically a trimester system.
Mm-hmm.
You start later and later. Yep, you've got time to choose your major. It's a little bit different.
So will sailing season start when you get there in the fall?
Yes, it runs fall and spring, but it'll start early in September. Most schools go back in mid-August and start sailing then, so we'll actually be a little bit behind, but they managed to make it work.
What are some of the other sailing programs in Stanford's league? Like, who will you race against?
All the UC schools have teams. Santa Barbara is probably the second best team right now. Hawaii's in the league. UCLA, a bunch of California schools on the West Coast, but they do a lot of traveling to the East Coast. Coach has already said that I'll probably be traveling 3 weekends in the fall, in October and September. So there's a lot of flying involved. They've all mentioned that it's a big skill to be able to sit down on the plane and just crank out work.
Right.
You're gone for Friday and then Saturday, Sunday, getting back late Sunday night. So,
Yeah, a lot of travel.
Yep.
You went to Oman.
Yep, sailing's helped with that. Outside of school, sailing's helped with kind of forming some discipline during travel. You miss a lot of school.
Yeah. So outside of your trip to Oman, have you gone to other places of the world for sailing before?
Yep. Italy, the Netherlands. I've been all over the U.S., Canada. So it's taken me all over the place. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. All right, well, I'm jealous that you're going to be in California.
Yeah.
It's
gonna be
pretty
fun.
nice.
Yep. Hopefully I can get some skiing in the winter.
Oh, yeah, you're a big
Off
skier.
season.
Did you
Yeah.
grow up skiing?
Yeah, it's like a week a year. Grandparents would take us out to Wyoming and we'd ski.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a fun hobby.
So you've got some skiing landscapes, you've got
Yeah.
some water landscapes. I mean, no wonder you like that form of art. You know? You're outdoors a lot, it
It's
seems
fun
like.
for me to paint, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a, I like Anae's style of the faces.
Yeah, I'm just not that good.
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Because I've always been interested in the caricature art,
Yeah, I wish I could paint people that way. The problem is you have to be so accurate it just doesn't look like, doesn't have the likeness.
Could offend
Your
someone.
subject, yeah. So
I was trying to explain his style of the flux of
yeah.
I don't even know how to put that into words. Like
I
what
think it's
that
like
is.
a long exposure, like similar to that on a camera,
Yeah.
There's kind of like different faces in the same image.
Do you know how he does that?
Yeah, he takes like a long exposure, photoshops the faces, and then paints from an image.
The
It's
one he
pretty
did of
impressive.
Elise is impressive.
Very impressive. Looks exactly like her.
Yeah.
He did one of himself. I titled that one for him Interpolation.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Are you all done in art? Is this it? Or do you have a
Um,
portfolio due at the end of the year?
We don't have a portfolio. I've got a piece that I'm working on right now. It's Alex Honnold. You've seen Free Solo?
I have.
Yeah.
That
him
guy's intense.
going up El Cap. It's a pretty big piece. And then we've got to do our 6x6 legacy portrait that hangs up in the back studio.
Oh.
So yeah, I've got to do a portrait, which will be interesting.
Anae was telling me that he has a setup at his house, like an art studio.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have something similar?
I do, yeah. I bought an easel junior year in my basement. It's the only place my parents will let it happen because it's pretty smelly. There's a lot of fumes and it can be messy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's in my basement.
And you do most of your work there, I assume.
Yeah, although this year we've had less, and I've had more free time, so I've been able to do a lot more at school. I haven't painted at home in a few months.
Mm-hmm. All right, Luke. Well, that sounds good. So we covered the art, covered Stanford, covered range a little bit. I meant to get this from the library to read a little bit more of it because I think I read the first chapter before, but I'm curious what the other examples he gives in here outside of sports are.
He talks a lot about chess and the Polgar sisters, who were basically an experiment by their dad to become geniuses or savants in a field. So he had them training with chess at a very young age, and they went on to be international masters and top 10 in the world. And basically what Epstein argues is that chess and golf aren't representative of most activities that people do, where in golf you can just swing a club the same way a bunch of times, you're going to be successful. In chess, you learn all the combinations of moves, you recognize patterns, you're going to be successful. That's not necessarily representative of problem solving or even other sports where you've got to combine a bunch of different motions, like running around, like lacrosse, for example, kind of cutting with your feet and shooting, passing, different stuff like that. So, yeah.
I was reading an article today in the New York Times about chess and why it's become so popular with teenagers and college students recently. Partly because of chess.com, but also I guess because of Queen's Gambit, but that came out a couple years ago. I'm not sure why. This year I just started noticing at Gilman, like, everybody is playing chess here. And it's kind of fascinating to me because chess is such an old game and it's not fast paced, it's a thinker's game, really.
Right.
You walk through the common rooms and everyone's playing chess.
Yeah.
Are you a chess guy?
I dabble in it occasionally. I've got chess.com installed on my phone.
But it's not I just think it's interesting.
It's probably a weekly occurrence.
Yeah.
Wouldn't put it on the daily level.
You're not a video game guy.
I'm not, no. No, during COVID, we'd play Xbox with my friends, but other than that, I've never been a video game guy, no.
Yeah. Me neither. So, cool. Range, I'm going to have to read it. Yeah, so we've got everything covered, I think.
Yeah. We have to talk about AI, though. Because after our conversation last week, we were talking about how AI could potentially be a friend for someone. I've got Snapchat on my phone. It's probably the way most people communicate my age. And they just released my AI for each person. So you have a little AI chatbot that's specific to you that tries to communicate with you.
So this happened after our conversation?
Yes.
Like the day after?
Yeah.
I walked into class and everyone had artificial intelligence on Snapchat.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on it?
It's scary. I mean, it's always trying to ask you more about yourself, and I'm wondering, like, where is this information going to go? Is this going to be incriminating somehow in the future? But it also seems like there's somewhat of a bias in the chatbot. Like, people have been putting in various commands trying to mess with it, and it's definitely trying to be, like, super politically correct. And yeah, that's what I'd say.
I was asking someone else about whether artificial intelligence can be somebody's friend, like a good friend that you come home and talk to. And he made a good point that people have shrinks and they have therapists and they have people in their lives that they go and talk to just to get things off of their chest and connect with somebody. And that doesn't mean they don't have other friends in their life and other people in their life, but that's healthy, right? It's healthy for you to go and talk to somebody. So why wouldn't an artificial intelligence that knows things and collects information about you and can give you valuable feedback be a positive?
Yeah, I think it could be. I mean, I just don't know how comfortable I'd be sharing information with someone that's not real, But I think for some people, yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And I think we're only seeing, like, the very beginning, the tip of the iceberg of this technology.
I think so, because now it's all typing, right? And I feel like, you've got Amazon Alexa, you've got Echo, you've got speaker systems, graphics and visuals are getting so much better. I think you're going to be able to go home, turn on your TV, little look-alike person will pop up with mannerisms and movements that you'll just talk to.
Yeah, I think people will have like full personal assistants that can basically do most everything a basic level like service job could do, but just in the form of an AI robot or something.
Yeah.
It goes back to what Mr. Hastings said about trying to be creative and think critically and be able to solve problems. Like those skills are always going to be valuable, I think. But some of the other things are just going to be so much easier and more quickly done by AI, like computer coding, for instance. I know people have put in prompts to like code a website, and ChatGPT can do it in seconds. That takes like a Google employee who's paid $60,000 a year to do over the course of months.
Right.
So that type of stuff I think is gonna kind of transition over pretty quickly. But yeah,
I can't say there's anything in that presentation with Mr. Hastings that I disagree with. I love the whole thing. I think he's spot on. But I do wonder, like, in 10 years, will seniors in high school, juniors in high school be writing papers for history or like what would that look like?
Right. I think he did a good job talking about how the AI or the chatbot wasn't able to actually read a text and deduce meaning from it and kind of connect themes to a quote. But I was also wondering, like, is that just a temporary thing, or is it going to be able to actually have that capability in the future?
Right. ChatGPT 4 is like what they've released to the public, but how about ChatGPT 8 that has read all of these books? And
yeah, I know. I don't know what it's going to look like for any kind of papers or online assignments. I feel like the better that ChatGPT gets, it's going to just be like harder for people to do their own work.
Something that I've been doing with my senior elective, great short fiction, and some of my junior classes is in tandem with what you submit for your writing. I'm also requiring, in some cases, a presentation, because that way, like, you have to stand in front of the room and deliver and talk to people and get people to buy into what you're actually writing about. And if you don't know, then you didn't actually do the paper. You didn't study it hard enough.
Yeah, I think what was going through my mind during that presentation was a lot of interpersonal jobs are just going to be maintained, like journalism or reporters, media. I think like AI is not going to take that over, I don't think. And something like giving a presentation is pretty hard to fake, because you've got to have gathered the information and be able to recite it in a way that makes sense. So I think that's pretty good representation of how, those skills will have to stay intact.
Yeah, and I thought Mr. Hastings did a really good job modeling like what a good presentation is. Like, he made us laugh at the beginning. He gave us all the pros of ChatGPT and told us it's interesting, because who's going to listen to someone who comes up there and says, you guys aren't allowed to use ChatGPT, that's cheating, right? I'm going to use it, of course. But if you tell me it's cool, it's interesting, I like it, I use it myself, but here's what's wrong with it, and here's what you're missing out on if you get through high school just by using ChatGPT, now I understand what you're saying, and I'm bought in.
Right. He had me completely convinced. And there's a lot of people I've come across, classmates, who have kind of the attitude that I'm smart, I can turn my mind on when I want to, but I don't think that could be further from the truth. I think the whole purpose of working hard and trying hard in school is to train yourself to kind of have those habits and those intentions, so when you do get to something challenging, you can fall back on that. And that just kind of becomes your work ethic.
Right. Now, do you see in high school, is it pretty widespread, like, are students using ChatGPT all the time?
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say a lot of people are using ChatGPT on a pretty regular basis. I had someone point out to me that it could be helpful today for like asking for sources for a research paper, for instance. And that seems pretty true, because it's not that different from Googling that, but maybe it gives you a better response. But yeah, I think it's sketchy when people are like literally copy and pasting responses that it's generated into their papers, and that's happened here. So
Yeah. Well, what I would say to that, and I think Mr. Hastings touched on this, but like I know how my students write, and
Yeah.
ChatGPT, it will give you, if you say write a 5-paragraph essay on The Great Gatsby, for instance, okay, copy and paste that, you turn it into Mr. Scott's class. First of all, every paragraph is like 4 to 5 sentences. Bam,
Right.
easy spot. But also, there's no grammatical mistakes, and not one of my 55 students, I don't even know if I could write a paper for you right now without one
Yeah.
grammatical mistake.
But also the sentence fluency is off. Like if you read it out loud, you'd be like, that does not sound like how someone would talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to generate different responses, and it still seems like it's not good writing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think for teachers, like you said, they know how kids write, and if they had the slightest feeling that someone was cheating, they could just pull you into their office and be like, tell me about your paper,
Mm-hmm.
paragraph by paragraph. And if you can't do that, then it's pretty obvious.
That's why I think the presentation / interview component to writing is not only important, but just makes you stand by what you've written a little bit
For
more,
sure.
and that's useful.
For sure.
Like I've had I've had multiple ChatGPT cases this year, and
Mhm.
not too many recently, because I think I did a similar presentation with my classes, and I think it was convincing, hopefully, to them. But I did read a paper this past weekend from a student, and the tell was that she had hyphenated something, and I was like, this student's not the type of person to hyphenate well-being. Like, that wouldn't be in her writing,
Right.
on a typical basis. And the tells are so subtle that only your English teacher, people who have read your writing a lot, can notice them.
Right. I know. It could be interesting on like college applications and various applications where the readers don't know the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
That could get interesting, for sure. But I think, yeah, like you said, interviewing, presentation, discussions, those things aren't going to be changed too much by ChatGPT. Like the discussions we had last year in English class were completely generated from people's own minds, because
Mm-hmm.
no one knew what the question would be. We'd connect it back to a book, a novel. I think that's good.
So let me ask you, because we're getting towards the end here. One of those questions that I asked last year was something that you've told me you thought a lot about. How do you know when you've made it? I think it's an interesting question.
Yep.
What have you thought about for yourself? You're headed to Stanford next year. You're kind of on the precipice of, the rest of your life, I guess, when you're graduating high school. What is success going to be for you? Like, what have you found out about yourself that you need in your life to be a successful person?
Yeah, so that question's been awesome for me. Like I told you, it's given me some good conversations at family dinners and various events. Christmas dinner this year, celebrated with my entire extended family in Austria, which is incredible.
Wow.
That was a topic of discussion for like 3.5 hours, and got some emotional responses from my grandparents, my parents, and it made me think about it a lot. And I think for me it will be having a family and giving my children the opportunities that I had or better, giving them a platform to succeed,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of have what I've had, or even have it better off than I have. And that's not just material things like going to school at good places and being on great sports teams, but really good parenting examples. My dad's been amazing, teaching me about humility, leaving things better than you found them, leadership by service, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of passing that on to the next generation. I think that's when I'll know that I've made it.
That's pretty awesome. I think it's a successful question, or that's success
Yeah.
to me in some ways, when one of my students is having a 3-hour conversation
Yeah,
about
for sure.
a daily entry question.
For sure.
So that's pretty cool. Well, Luke, Cesare, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
If you'd like to read Range, Luke's book recommendation, it's right here. It's in the library. They're getting rid of a ton of books in the library, which is very sad, but hopefully you could pick up Range before it's gone.
It's a great read.
And Luke, thank you very much for coming in today. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.